The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are that of the hosts and guests respectively and do not represent the views or standpoints of any associated companies or organisations. This podcast is to create awareness of different health topics and not intended to replace professional medical advice.
We are not medical experts of any of the topics discussed in the health room and advise you seek professional advice from your healthcare providers. Hi, I'm Fiona.
Hi, I'm Lamide.
And welcome to the health room. Okay, how have you been?
I've been good. I'm tired. I'm so tired. But you know I'm going on holiday soon. I'm going to Kenya.
Oh, that's gonna be beautiful.
I'm so excited.
How long are you going for, sorry?
2 weeks. So we've got the safari, we've got the wedding in the city. I'm going to an Indian wedding. Super excited. My first Indian wedding.
Are you wearing like a sari? And
yes. We're going to get the material, going to get all the jewelry. Super excited. And the last portion of it, we're going to like the beach. I don't know where the beach is, but we booked a beach resort. So
good.
We have to get a flight out of Nairobi to that area. So I just need it.
Rest, de-stress,
Honestly.
come back refreshed. Oh, it will be amazing.
I cannot wait to get to Heathrow.
Yeah.
That's the best thing, just getting to the airport and just giving them your suitcase and having a little handbag and, getting a cocktail because you can.
Yes.
At 9 o'clock in the morning.
Doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter in the airport.
It doesn't matter. So,
it doesn't exist.
But yeah, I'm super excited and I just need a break. But yeah, but how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Again, tired. I just feel like the end of last year didn't stop. All the stress, all the drama of last year just literally carried on into January.
Definitely.
I'm just like, oh, please, I need a break.
I know.
But between me and my girls, me and my family, and just extended friends, family, things like that, we are all planning so many trips. Honestly, day trips here, actual holidays here, a little break here. We're planning so much. So hopefully I'll get a lot of rest this year.
You will. You deserve it. You deserve it. So no, amazing. At least we're good. And it's our first episode of the year as well.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, everyone. So this segment of the pod is called What's in the News. So Lamide and I will be talking about stories that we found in the news recently. So I'll go first.
You go first, yeah, of course.
So one news story that did pop out to me was the US Supreme Court that are currently reviewing a Texas law that requires age verification for any online porn sites.
Good.
So I think this is great. You know me, I'm always like anything for shielding the kids. So people that support the law are saying, yes, we're going to protect the kids. They won't be what they've literally, in this quoted, there won't be the filth online that the kids can find. But then protesters are saying that, no, this is going to take away our freedom of speech. This is going to take away our rights. It's infringing on our privacy because we have to give our ID in order to access these things. People are in an uproar. There's a big debate, many big debates going on. The final ruling is not until June.
Okay.
So for now, everything's up in the air, so we'll see how that pans out.
Okay. Super interesting. That's literally similar to my news story, but for the UK.
Okay.
So it's Ofcom guidance and it's the Online Safety Act. So they're rolling this out, similar thing, in July, where there's going to be checks before anyone can get into a website where there's pornographic content.
Yeah.
So it's like yours, ID, bank card, online banking, whatever it is. They are putting that through, and that's coming out in July. I personally think it's a good thing because, someone the other day, like even just you may go on one website, and before you know it, you're seeing something you didn't want to see.
100%.
And it's just like, excuse me, I'm trying to do something else here.
Yeah.
So definitely agree with it. And what I read as well from the BBC, there's people that are like, yeah, it's fantastic. We're saving the kids. We're looking after the kids. And then it's so funny. Pornhub, the number one porn people, they were like, well, that's not right because they found in one of the states in America, Louisiana, when they did this, their traffic, their site traffic went down by 80%.
Wow.
So that's a lot, and they're losing a lot of money,
of course,
by not getting that. So I see where they're coming from, but at the same time, like, well, the kids need to protect the children and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see what happens, but I do think it is needed because you can go on anything and it's just so accessible.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to read, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it. So yeah, that's our what's in the news story.
Gosh.
Yeah, so we'll see. Things are changing.
They are.
We have a special guest in the
Very
building.
special guest.
We are incredibly honoured to have him on. He is our first expert on the pod, and his name is John Beveridge. You are one of the founding members of ATSAC, which stands for the Association of Treatment of Sexual Addiction and Compulsivity. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have been helping people with their many addictions, not just sex or love addiction, but I read that it's sexual anorexia.
Yeah.
You do a lot of stuff. I saw on your LinkedIn you were a deaf doula.
Yeah.
You're a relationship therapist, and you've been doing this for over...
I don't do couples.
Don't do couples, just singles right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into
But often when you're seeing someone, there's another person in the room
Yes, of course. And you've been doing
when
it
they're
for
in a
over
couple.
20 years. So.
Since 81. No, sorry, 2001.
Wow. So basically 25 years.
Yeah.
You've been in the game.
Yeah.
So we are honoured to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll give you the floor to introduce yourself. So yeah, anything you want to share to our audience?
Okay. I started as an attachment-based psychoanalytic psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after beginning to practice, I was approached by a man called Thaddeus Burchard, who was really the founding member of what became ATSAC. And he wanted to start a group, a private group that was people paid to come. And it started off, it was mainly men who were suffering from sex and love addiction. And he asked me to help him start this group. And I was like, oh no, the British public aren't ready for this. But he was American and he was very gung-ho.
Yes.
And he set it up and I went in the beginning and we were running groups. And then he opened a treatment centre and he started to teach therapists to train as sex addiction therapists. And that's where I worked, teaching people about attachment.
Wow.
Can I ask what led you to that point? Did you have any kind of passion to work with people with sex addictions? Had you had a lived experience? Was there any kind of driver that sent you down that path?
I came from an addiction background. I'm in recovery from alcoholism for 45 years.
Wow.
I know, it impresses the hell out of me too. But what I was beginning to see in my practice, that a lot of people who had recovered were now seeking therapy because the addictive behaviour had moved to something else, and a lot of people, and there wasn't a lot of information about sex addiction. So we were almost teaching it as we were giving it and learning how to do it from the first people who came for therapy for sex addiction.
Wow.
And then other people that came along. I believe you're seeing Paula Hall. She opened her own treatment centre.
Yes.
And she deals a lot with couples who are affected by it. So it keeps growing.
Yeah.
And I always say there's never a shortage of misery out there. There's no recession in the porno market.
Yeah. That's a fact, really, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, thank you for sharing that about yourself.
Thank you.
We're ready to get into some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question time?
Question time. Oh yeah, we can touch on the chapter because you sent us a chapter to read. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So for me, what I really liked, I wrote it down because I feel like I said that's what it is. Yeah. So a habit goes to a compulsion or an addiction. That's the mutation. And what gets you there is the availability and opportunity.
Yeah.
Now the availability is, let's be honest, online.
Yeah.
And the opportunity, like you said, things have changed for a lot of people for the past years. People aren't getting jobs. People aren't getting, we can barely make ends meet. We are drowning in Klarna, debt, you name it. Like everyone's just barely making it.
Yeah.
No one's, I don't want to say happy, but no, there's something missing, if that makes sense. So to me, that's the opportunity, I guess. That it's giving you something, if that makes sense.
It's also affordable because it's
yeah.
cheap now. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's anonymous. And this goes to what you are addressing. People cannot remain anonymous in the future if these laws come in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some people will be relieved that when they decide to come off it because they don't want to give that information.
Sure.
That it's like taking candy from a kid, almost.
essentially. So yeah. So I'm intrigued to see.
That's not good for them.
It's not
No,
good,
of
but
course.
it's going to be interesting because actually on that point, from what I said in the article, there was a comment that said, okay, they won't seek porn on those sites, but they might start to seek darker areas of the web and find the content elsewhere.
That's what I'm worried
That's
about.
already happening, I think.
Yeah.
I think it goes from one level of sexual desires, trying to achieve those sexual desires, to another. So, for example, sometimes it may just go into, pornography. Then maybe you're actually utilizing services, so like prostitutes and actually engaging in
workers.
prostitution.
Sex workers,
Yeah, sex workers. And then it goes into other areas like bestiality and things,
Dangerous territory.
other territories that it's like they need to keep scratching that itch.
Well, people also keep finding things that they may have had to seek out in the past when people had to buy magazines, and a lot of men had a stash of magazines, and a lot of kids growing up talk about finding their parents' videos and magazines and becoming sexualized through that, using it themselves. And what you've just been talking about, if you can look at anything, why wouldn't you? If you just wonder, and people are coming across things that they would never have sought out if they had to go and ask it from someone in a shop.
It's true. So it's a game changer. Technology is as helpful as it is.
And people are, a lot of people are addicted to technology. I mean, if you want to know what addiction feels like, put your phone in a little box and don't go near it for 24 hours and see. Most people
Be able to.
would find that very difficult. And
Very.
this is the interesting thing about, you asked a question about what the difference is between ordinary people and sex addicts. And the thing is, if a sex addict stops, if the supply is stopped in some way, they can't use for some reason, they become dysregulated. Because it's not about sex. It's about the regulation of emotions, that sex is just one of many things that people use. And again, the anonymity and the availability of porn means that nobody supposedly knows they're doing it if it's anonymous.
Yeah, exactly.
But people who become dysregulated also become harmed by the use of it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Because it affects the brain. It affects the frontal cortex of the brain, which is the part that holds all our ideals and how the people we want to be.
Yeah.
And when people start using sex and other drugs, it just wipes that part away. It's like, never mind that. Never mind the wife and kids that you say, we'll deal with that tomorrow. And it affects the brain function, the amygdala. If people are avoiding being distressed all the time, they are becoming distressed when they stop doing it, and that's what feeds the porn. So there's a part of the brain that looks for trouble, that tries to protect us from trouble, and it's always wary. And if people are always wary, they're more likely to be disturbed, and it sets up a vicious cycle of addiction. That as soon as the chemicals in the body that we carry everywhere, and you can start moving them by thinking about sex and becoming aroused. When it goes through the final cycle and people have evacuated the feelings that they were having, that they might not even be consciously aware they have, they just feel uneasy, and then they think, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
The cycle can then start up again, but it usually ends in shame. You know, when people say, I've done that again, I meant not to. I said I would never do it. And then they need to use to take away the shame, and they're back in the cycle.
Exactly. It feels like it. I guess for someone who's come to, it must feel like it's a never-ending. Like, do they feel like they probably feel stuck, like they can't get out of it? Like it's
like a cycle that just keeps
turning.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they come in and they see it like, are they hopeful when they come to you? I know we're going off track, but are they like, I can't wait for this to go?
Well, a lot of people come because they have been discovered. Or someone I worked with borrowed her boyfriend's phone, or he loaned her the phone 2 weeks before the marriage, and she found the number of another woman on it. And unconsciously, he may have been trying to arrest his own by making someone aware of it. But often people find their partners are using prostitutes, sex workers, porn, whatever form it's taking. They are then confronted, and if they cannot deny it, if it's on the search history or whatever, their recovery becomes spouse-led. And people will tend not, and this works for most addictions, people will tend not to do anything about it until they're in danger of losing something.
Yeah.
And if someone says, either sort this out or we're over.
Yeah.
So it's that ultimatum that makes them...
So there's generally a kind of rock bottom in most addictions and also in porn. And people just get frazzled from constantly using it.
Yeah.
And they get alienated, as you described, almost spiritually, from living an empty, repetitive life without meaning or a sense of wonder or joy or the joy of living. And a lot of the things started because people had something they didn't want to feel, and it's like kicking the ball into the long grass. I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll just do this now. And what starts out taking away bad feelings ends up creating. It becomes a form of self-harm in itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you never think of it like this, but then when you actually have broken it down for us, it does seem like it's essentially a disease. It's a disorder
Of the mind, body and
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah. And I feel like there's often that thing of, oh, it's just a porn addiction. I'm like, oh, it's just watching porn, it's healthy, it's normal.
I think there's obviously we will touch on this later. I think there is a healthy limit, but then when it starts interrupting with your everyday life,
Yeah, just like
that's
any
when
addiction,
I believe
yeah.
that it starts that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
That's when help needs to be
Needs
sought.
to be sought. No, but I want to touch in about, like, is there a healthy way
Yeah.
to watch it? But we can go into that later.
Yeah. So we have Mr. John Beveridge here, an author.
Yes.
So he wrote a chapter called A Tangled Web, Internet Pornography, Sexual Addiction and the Erosion of Attachment. And this is from the book called Love in the Age of the Internet by Linda Cundy. It's 2015. Now, this book essentially focuses on the internet pornography and its effects on real life relationships and how they disrupt healthy human attachments. Did I get that right, John?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. Amazing.
Great. So we've read the chapter and we're just excited to ask you a bunch of questions that relate to what you've written and what your career pathway has been so far.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Amazing.
let's go.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So, should I go back to my question?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's a no.
So, another question I have for you, John, I've got quite a few. But how should I ask first? Let me ask this one, because I think a friend asked me this actually. Are there specific groups of people that are more vulnerable to developing a porn, a love, a sex addiction?
Yes. I suppose this may sound flippant, but children are vulnerable. And the families in which people grow up to become porn addicts, there's generally an atmosphere around sex in the home. And this can be where sex is forbidden or not talked about or shameful. And the word shameful is something that keeps coming round in porn addiction. People are at risk in the families they grow up in if they don't meet the optimal conditions of being loved. The kind of personalities that people have, if they are depressed, they will tend to seek stimulants. And if they are overexcited, they tend to seek alcohol and opiates to calm them down, to bring them back down to a kind of operating level.
Okay.
And if this is mixed with sex as excitement, cocaine, a lot of people who use sex workers now can buy cocaine from the sex workers. They sell it as part of the service. It's like, keeps you coming back.
I never knew that.
Neither either. Wow, that's
shocking.
It's shocking. It's actually really interesting though about the families that people are raising. People don't tend to look at that.
No.
They think, oh, he was a young girl, he was a young boy. They just stumbled upon it, and that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's that thing about shame and guilt and hiding sex. I always said I think sex should be discussed in a healthy way with children.
Absolutely.
Because they're naturally curious. As they
Absolutely,
you want
they
a
should
curious
be.
child who could be like, Mummy, what's that? But at least you're a safe place to ask such a question. Not like, oh, don't talk to me about that, never. Because then they're going to go seek it elsewhere. And God knows what
their
they're
friends
Yeah.
and their friends that are not knowledgeable, not
Oh,
experts,
God,
are going to advise them. And of course, we know the influence that peers have, especially on young people. So that's just leading them down the wrong path. I'm thankful because my mum always kind of just spoke to us about that as much as she could.
Yes.
But she, you know, again, she's still an African mum, so there's
Yes.
going to be that boundary. But she always spoke to us about, like, as gently as she could about those kind of things. Like, you know, that, funny enough, my daughter's 6 and I do the same. Make sure no one touches here. You know, these are your you know, you start like that. And then as she gets older, I will adapt my message accordingly. But I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think it starts from home.
Yeah.
It starts from your base, your initial relationship. So that first, you know, attachments. It definitely starts from there.
Exactly.
And I like how you touched on the lack of love, because when essentially every human being wants to be loved. So if they don't find that love, that care from some person, especially the people that are supposed to be in their corner, supposed to be in their circle, they're going to look for it, and that satisfaction that comes with it elsewhere.
Totally agree with you.
What impact would you say that sex or porn addiction has on a person's wider determinants of health? So that's the whole scope. So housing, employment, income, education.
I think it's back to the secrecy thing of people are not fully present in their own lives. People can lose a sense of direction or motivation. And just going round and round, it's physically depleting. They're not in their lives.
Oh, gosh.
It's a journey, isn't it? It's a journey. We're going to deep into like what you do, your day job, and like, you know, helping people move past addiction. So there's a lot to talk about on this topic, but I wanted to talk briefly about supporting a friend or someone you know with a sex or porn or love addiction. Like, from my experience, when someone has told me, it was like, well, that's a big thing. I don't want to shame them because I understand the magnitude of.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank you for sharing this with me. Thank you for being vulnerable. Like, this is a really big thing. And I'm so glad you feel like I can be your safe space.
Yeah.
But it's also like, okay, what do we do? How, I don't know, what do I say? Are you watching it? Am I putting tabs on you? Like, where do we go from here? So what advice would you give to someone that's trying to support someone who's got an addiction? Like, what's the best way? Do you do it from afar? Do you encourage them to seek help? Like, what's the best way to play that game or to...
It depends, I suppose, on what your relationship is to them. Because it's going to affect how you see them. It is essential, and I think that's right, not to shame people.
Yeah.
Because if shaming healed addiction, our prisons wouldn't be full of drug and alcohol addicts.
Sure.
Shaming has never worked to stop people behaving. In fact, it might make them further entrenched. If it's a partner, it's really important to perhaps get help yourself, to seek help. What can I do about this? Find out from someone who perhaps works with partners of sex addicts, because it's really important that you don't become the accountability buddy for, so that they have to tell you everything if they have an impure thought, if they think they might be wanting to act out. If you're closely involved with them, if you're in a relationship with them, for instance, there might be this background thing of if they really loved me, they wouldn't do that. You know, or if they really loved me and I asked them to stop and they don't stop, or they keep falling back, that's kind of taking something personally that is not about you. But if they stop for you, then they might start again when they are pissed off with you, or you haven't done something that they wanted them to. So it's really important that you don't set yourself up to be policing their usage, or because it doesn't work.
No.
But encouraging them to seek help and talk about it. There is a lot more information out there than there used to be. So people need not suffer alone.
No, but that makes perfect sense.
It does.
The addict gets all the fuss made if they go into treatment. If they go into treatment or join groups, and they have friends and supporters now, and who has the person who's left at home to help them?
And it's not something you talk to the girls, like, hey girls,
No.
of a brunch, he's got this, or vice versa. The men are not going to go, hey, I'm dealing with this. Like, so it's.
So that you're mentally dealing with the baggage of
and it can be isolating.
Partners.
I can imagine for some people. Like, it's hard to it's such a, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's not something you talk about over tea. It's really difficult to bring up as a partner of someone who's got an addiction. So another question from that. So let's say there's someone who's dealing with that. How do they? I guess so they're providing support. When do they say, you know what, I've got to step back?
Very good question. The person who has been deceived, who has thought that the person they were with was someone else all the time, has a right to walk away if they say, I don't want this anymore. But they are also attached. So they may have to face a period of grief, of what they've lost is a life vision, where I thought I was going to be with this person and we were going to be happy and we were going to have kids and blah, blah, blah. The life's vision has to be readjusted. I've now got someone who's a bit of a liability, and adjust yourself to that reality, which, as I say, you don't have to stay there, because the person has been traumatized by finding out there's been deception. They're not, no matter what the reasons, and there's lots of good reasons for trying to protect your source of supply, but it can be like being hit by a bus for the person who finds out.
Yeah, and it's a whole, like you said, they need therapy themselves, because there's partners that are dealing with this that are just, I don't know how they're dealing with it. They're just, like I said, the anxiety and stress goes into that person. So, I like that. They should get therapy.
It's like offshoring. Yeah. It's like getting people to do your work for you.
Exactly.
And they don't know they're doing it, but it happens.
It happens.
And this grew out of the Alcoholics Anonymous. The partners of alcoholics became as obsessed about their drinking, more obsessed than they were, because they were always counting the bottles and checking up and running around, and they had to start their own organization for the partners to learn how to detach from, there's a lot of things about that you'll know about self-regulating and balancing and getting to know themselves, because they've been obsessed about someone. They've become, without them having the drug of choice to take away their pain, while the other person has just been...
Exactly.
The captain is drunk at the wheel and the ship is heading for the rocks.
And they probably lose themselves in that
other
journey. Find yourself and find out what was... Who was I before this?
Exactly.
Yes.
So, I think a lot of people need to hear that. So yes. Okay, one last question around this bit, and then I want to touch into what does the journey look like? Sorry, I think I might be overtaking, but what does the journey look like from someone who comes in to, hopefully recovery? Mm-hmm. So the last question on this bit is, so if you've got parents, partners, loved ones who have someone in their life who's struggling with addiction, what's the best piece of advice you could give to those people?
to be as honest. You mentioned it before about how you talk to your children about sex. Try to be responsive and try to get them talking about what's going on, because that's going against. And some people may have tried to avoid seeing that there is trouble, and they may have to learn how to start addressing issues that have gone unaddressed. And, you know, where has the sex gone in our relationship? How do we start reintroducing that when you're angry with someone or when you're carrying a lot of hurt? And you may want to ask a lot of questions. Did you take her in our car? Did you go to our restaurant? Or, you know, if they've been unfaithful.
Yeah.
I keep talking in gendered terms, but I tend to see mostly men who have.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's just, it's reality. It's just the real world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to touch on the recovery side of things. So the question I have for you is, what does the journey to recovery typically involve, and what are some of the key challenges people face when seeking support?
Okay. I think the first challenge is learning how to be honest. In a way, they have to learn how to start being honest emotionally. And that usually starts off if people go to a recovery group, and then you try to get them to repair the relationships that they've hurt people. And that comes a bit later, once they've got a bit of stability in their own lives. And then they get to know themselves in ways that they've never really had time to sit still and be. And in meditation, mindfulness, all that kind of thing is encouraged. Getting healthy again, it's self-care. And that takes time.
It does.
It's not an instant
It can
fix.
never be.
But often it's the relationships that they start to build, because relationship is what heals addiction, either with therapists or buddies or whatever. And people kind of come out of hiding because they've been hiding in the addiction. It's not about sex. It's not about heroin. It's about the fantasy of how will I be when I get that thing?
That it's a lot to think about, and it definitely is food for thought, especially for those that are trying to recover, because I think it's, as you said, it's not just an instant thing. They have to change their whole lifestyles and everything that they've known for
Everything that they've known all their lives.
That must be very...
Which starts with puberty, Jen. If it's sex addiction we're talking about, it starts with how...
Going back there.
You know, how do we relate to other people as not as objects, not as just something that's there for our pleasure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And people can become good and loving parents and be rehabilitated to their families and create stronger relationships than they had before.
Yeah. And that's what I wish for everyone who, you know, who goes through this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love to hear a recovery story, because it gives you that hope that things can change. Change is imminent. It's not just you're stuck into that situation.
No, it's not hopeless.
Exactly.
So like when someone comes to you and they've said, okay, John, I don't know, my wife caught me. She's gonna leave me. We've been married 20 years, and I want to kick this habit. I've had it for 20 years, and I want to live my full life as a retired. I don't know, whatever they're doing. What are the first things you discuss? I think you said you go back to like childhood or puberty. What steps are taken? Like what actually happens in that space with you and this person? Like,
dig where you stand. You know, focus on what people are doing well and encourage them to continue doing that. Get them talking about what makes them sparkle. Have you got any pets? Have you got any children? Have you got what do you do for a living? When people start talking about something they love, they light up.
yeah.
And you can, you know, I work a lot with somatic experiencing, and when you get people talking about what creates a sense of awe, what makes them glad to be alive, the whole body language changes, and then you can say, can you see what's happening here? Can you just stay with that? What has made you smile or cry or feel grateful to be alive? if you train a nervous system to start enjoying the ordinary pleasures of life that a lot of us take for granted every day, waking up in a dry, clean bed, when their nervous system starts to experience that, they start to feel good without having introduced a stimulant. And then you're not trying to teach them to be something they don't know. You're not inviting them into, I don't know how to be like that. No, you've just showed me. You've just showed me when you're talking about taking your dog out for a walk, how you enjoy that. Can we just go back to that feeling? And when people start to have more feelings of being good, feeling good, not being good, it makes the addiction less attractive because it was an empty thing anyway. And that's why people say, when they say to me, you haven't drunk for 45 years, don't you miss it? No, not at all, because my life, I think addiction is a bit like grief in the death doula work. They talk about when we've suffered a bereavement, the grief does not get smaller in our lives, but our lives get bigger around it as time goes on. And it's still there. We can still feel sad and miss people and feel, but our lives have grown. And when people can be encouraged to do the things that they should have been doing all their lives, or should have been doing all their lives, they don't want to go back to the addiction because their lives are improving. And it's not just something that burns through you very quickly and leaves you feeling wanting more. How much goodness can you feel in your own pride and your own sense of what?
It's true.
Let's focus on what you do well. Yeah. And when you talk about your work or whatever, people change.
I like that. Because it's like a reminder of you have a lot to work forward for. Yeah. So, and then just think of this, focus on this, and then do the work that you need to do. That's definitely an amazing approach.
It's better than...
Exactly.
You've been a naughty boy and you're going to sit on the naughty step and think about what you've done.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I don't know what I was expecting to hear.
Think of
But I think that's amazing because, like you said, it reminds them like what you're looking for is essentially in you.
It's within you.
You know what I mean? You just got to find it.
I get people to say to me, out of the session, I say, send me a text every day just telling me 5 things you're grateful for. And they go, oh, okay. And then they start doing it. And after about a fortnight, their minds are looking for things that are good, not things that, oh, look, it's raining, there's no point going to work. Or it's not looking for the negative. And it changes people's brains. And that's what the addiction was doing all that time. But it was taking power away. And I believe in giving people back power or a sense of being powerful in their own lives.
Yeah.
And it makes the addiction shrink. And their lives get bigger.
Okay, I love that. I love that analogy though.
Yeah,
it does, because like with grief, it's still there. It's just you just encapsulate it with the goodness of your life, right?
Yeah.
And growth and whatnot. So yeah, no, sounds good.
John, another question that I have for you is: you state in your chapter, to go back to the chapter, true recovery goes beyond abstinence. It requires rebuilding trust, re-establishing emotional intimacy, and addressing the attachment wounds that fuel addiction. Could you share what steps people typically take after completing treatment to maintain long-term recovery and rebuild their human social relationships?
I think they start enjoying and being fulfilled by those relationships.
I love that.
They have denied themselves because of the fear that they will be hurt or disappointed, or they have to do it all themselves. It's the seeing people begin to trust other people and let down those defenses that is probably the most rewarding thing that I see in my work.
Oh, I love that.
I love that. Yeah. That's a beautiful answer.
So my question, I'm supposed to give some context. So, like I said before we started filming, we went on live. Like a lot of people, black people in the UK, we go to university, we go to Christians anyway, we go to some church, and the church itself is, questionable. That's another topic for another day. It was good for a lot of things, good for maybe the one I went to was good about maybe exposure, about learning about pornography and sex and stuff like that. But it was done in a way that was, like I said, shamed or made to feel guilty. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. Why are you doing that? Why have you got a boyfriend? What's that about? And a lot of people dealt with that in different ways. I remember there was a guy who shared his testimony, his story about, being addicted to pornography. And like he said, like, the arousal threshold changes. He gave us the change, and I was like, okay, hold up, stop there. And I think my question centers around, is there a space? I think there is, but I want to hear your opinion because you're the expert here. Is there a space where someone can heal, recover? And because sometimes religion, we say it can give you shame, but is there a space where healing and religion can coexist, and someone can still be connected to their spirituality, their faith, and still recover?
Yeah.
Like, I always see stories where religion seems to and I've seen it in real life where it does add to the shame, it does add to the guilt, and they just get in that nasty rut where they feel like they can't escape it because God is judging them. People are judging them. They don't deserve to be on earth. They hate themselves. They can't talk to anybody, and they just. I'm like, is there a space where they can just use that and still use healing and just heal, flourish, grow?
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if you had an experience of anyone like that before.
Most of the people who stay in recovery and do recover, I see that happening. But it tends to be more about spirituality rather than religion.
Okay.
For instance, I've often envied those black churches where people sing their hearts out. Aretha Franklin.
Pentecostal church.
Pentecostal, you just come to our church.
Yeah, Pentecostal church, have you right?
Because they are just so full of life when that's happening. And that makes every cell in your body glad to be alive. And whatever it is, spirituality is whatever you believe in. I know one woman who's a fierce Christian. I don't mean that in a bad way, but she's a sex addiction therapist. And when you are full of life, it transmits, we broadcast it. It passes from cell to cell. And again, that's about the joy of living, not the you're a dirty thing, stand in the corner, we'll shun you if you don't.
And there's something we discussed on our pre-call about, we said religious homes. I think you said that earlier today, actually. Religious homes can
touched on it.
Excessively be religious homes, the ones where sex is not discussed and shunned,
completely forbidden,
is wrong and is dirty, even though
it's a norm.
It's happening. You know what I mean? I believe there can be a balance, right? And we've discussed this earlier. I think we're not repeating ourselves, but it's about healthy communication with children.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, does it start before they ask questions when it comes to this sort of pornography? Do you let them know it's there? Do they need to come to you? Should it be proactive, reactive? What's the best way to go about that sort of?
Again, if you're living in a happy home, you know you are.
True.
And what you were saying earlier about how you speak to your children.
Yeah.
And try to be open and not have shame around stuff.
Oh. Yeah. You need to have that happy home in order to kind of hope, well, it's not always, to be honest, but to kind of negate from these kind of issues creeping in. Because if that lack of love is present, you won't feel comfortable to raise your inquiries, to raise your concerns or your worries, or okay, mum, dad, I heard this, or and let's say, for instance, you don't even have older siblings or something like that, or older cousins or anything, you won't be able to get that information from anyone credible.
The safe space.
Yeah, and you won't have a safe space. You'll probably have just your friends who are probably in the same boat as you, clueless, advising you. And that can lead to so many issues, I believe. Yeah. So I think that's a very good point. Okay.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm excited. A lot of people have kids are, asking. So I'm actually, I think just being proactive. Like I said, having a happy foundation is super duper important. So it kind of boils down to you as an individual, just to making sure you're creating a happy home. And if you're not happy in yourself, then you forget that it can cascade into so many other things. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
But I don't meet the people who've grown up in those wonderful families.
You meet the ones.
I meet the ones who are trying to repair Yeah.
Yeah.
Breaks in early attachment, but they can be repaired
Yeah.
if they can get to some kind of self-respect, which the whole addiction industry doesn't care about.
Exactly.
It's only about feeling good in this moment.
Exactly.
It's not about building something.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh goodness, it's
I
a
know.
lot to think about. There's so much around it. You just think, oh, someone has a porn addiction or a sex addiction, and you just think, okay, that's just them. They'll get over it. But there's so much work, so much that needs to be done. There's so much that has led to that we don't consider.
Honestly, so much to discover, so much self-discovery to do, which I feel like maybe can be slightly uncomfortable for people that have never had to really like ask themselves questions or look inwardly.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Can you share any success stories? Of course, don't identify anyone. Where people were struggling and you were able to offer them help.
There are loads of these stories where
Oh, lovely. What's your favourite one? Or what's one that you really recall? If it's identifiable, you can change the man to a woman. You can
whatever you got to do.
you can give them a fake name, whatever you want to do to help them remain anonymous.
someone I worked with was given away early in his life for adoption. He had a fantasy. Part of his sexual addiction was having a fantasy of being with two women at a time. Nothing wrong with that. But one of them was cold and aloof, and the other one was warm and loving.
Okay.
And what I've often seen in people's recovery stories is that the thing that turns them on sexually has something to do with early trauma. So if you're taken from the arms of a woman who didn't want to give you away and you're put in the arms of a woman who you haven't been inside, you don't like her smell, she's going to feed you differently. That's like a setup for something that in your fantasy you turn into a happy story that's been sexualized. And this person now works in children's welfare.
Oh, wow.
With a lot of children who've had disruptive early lives. And that's a success story of his addiction is not a problem anymore.
No.
Because his life is fulfilled and fulfilling.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh.
Like it's almost like a full circle. Like he's trying to maybe like help children so they don't go through what
exactly.
Yeah.
he's gone through.
It's the phrase in that chapter I wrote is turning trauma into triumph. And a lot of people have stories where they've done sexual activity that has shamed them, but it contains the seed of turning the tables on it, being the master of it rather than the victim of early trauma. And when people get that, they can see where it came from rather than it just, I do this and I can't understand it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I work with have rebuilt relationships where there's been deep division that their children has seen, and now they're living in happy families where they've worked hard to restore something that perhaps wasn't even there before.
Oh, that's lovely.
When they had affairs or sought something outside of the family.
Yeah.
As an add-on, rather than working with what they have.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
So they've basically just replenished like the home and like brought everything they have back into where it should be, essentially. So no, I love that. I'm happy. I love a success story.
Yeah, that I do.
I feel like with the porn addictions and love addictions or sex addictions or whatever, people just feel like it's an endless cycle.
Exactly.
But I've always believed there's always victory on the other side.
Yeah. A lot of treatment programs have been now running a long time, and they know how to create an atmosphere in which healing can occur because our bodies want to grow and heal. And
I love that. No, thank you, John. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else that you would like to discuss on this platform? Like, because we've asked our questions, but anything you else like to mention? Anything you want to touch on?
When you're talking about good mental health,
Yeah.
what we're talking about is what a lot of people have, which we take for granted every day. And when people recover from addictions, they have to struggle quite hard not to do the thing that they've always done. And it may seem a bit dull when someone is living a normal life. But sometimes in a life, if someone can go to the tube and get on the tube and go to work and not have fantasies of throwing themselves under it because they feel hopeless, that's a great story. That's a recovery, but they're just living like ordinary people, not drawing attention to themselves. And good mental health is normal, or it should be.
It should be normal, yeah.
So I think it's easy to judge people for having failed or become addicts, or, you know, they have a bad rep. And a lot of therapists don't work with them because of the time it takes to get people well. But there's a lot of people out there in recovery now.
We love that. Something to be celebrated, for sure.
To be celebrated.
For sure. It's good, and that speaks to your work as well.
Exactly.
Like helping these people, do you know what I mean? Like starting up ATSAC, you know, putting ourselves together and actually saying yes, do you know what I mean? Like to the, I forgot his name, the American colleague that came up to you and said, let's start this group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I was thinking, too soon.
but
he was right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he left a great he's not here anymore, but he left a great legacy.
Yeah, exactly. And lots of people, like you said, it's people are going to keep coming. You're always going to be booked and you're always going to be busy. So you're helping people's lives become what they should be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they never got there because of, you know, but...
The train took the wrong tracks a long time ago.
Exactly. But you're bringing it back.
Yeah.
And they get to live this fulfilling life. And that's one thing I want people to remember, that there is a fulfilling life after any addiction.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you're a testament to that. So just, you can keep going and you can still live a very fruitful life. So you're not a write-off. So...
There's light
or boring.
in the tunnel.
is it all boring?
Or
Exactly.
boring.
Exactly.
The dreadful fear in our culture of being boring.
Exactly. Please. So this segment, guys, is a new segment that we're introducing, which is called Ask an Expert. We have the lovely John Beveridge here. I'm going to ask him a few questions. For this topic, we actually asked you guys to send questions in, and you did, and we're grateful. So we're going to ask John these questions. So some of this is very talked on already, but we're still going to ask you just if you have another insight you want to share. So the first question is, how do I discuss pornography with my 14-year-old son? I know that he's already aware of pornography. Yeah.
Tell him not to believe everything he sees. That women in straight porn are often not treated very well with respect. There's a lot of, it's borderline abusive. And that in an ideal world, it would be an equality between the partners. One would not be dominating the other. And to treat women with respect and to question what he's seeing, not believing that that's how people have sex. And I think there's something about the way that people are learning, as you've already said, they're learning how to do sex from pornography. And someone mentioned, how do you talk to them about porn? You tell them it's not real.
Yeah.
In the old days when there was more narrative, it wasn't just all straight sex, you know, people... It used to give a false impression of how long it takes a plumber to arrive at the beginning of the film.
It's like ding dong. It's like, oh no, I've got a leak. Ding
There we go.
in a second. Okay.
No,
That's very
absolutely
true.
right.
Very, very true.
Right. It's true because, like I said, it ain't realistic. And
No.
when he does finally have sex or whatever, it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
And so,
Expectations might be quite high.
yeah.
You never see people holding each other. You never see arms because they get in the way of the money shot, you know, the sexual organs. You never see people being tender or loving, as people often are in sex. It's fast and it's all cut for intensity. And it might lead people to expect that sex is something that they might find awkward or disappointing, and then feel there's something wrong with them if it's not like the porno.
Yeah. No.
So it's almost like they've held that to some type of reference in their minds.
Yeah.
And when they don't live up to that, they can be quite disappointed.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Maybe seeking it in other ways, that probably
Exactly.
the healthiest ways to get that sort of
Yeah.
sex. So yeah.
And that sex is relational. It's not, and it's consensual,
Oh yes.
Exactly.
Definitely consensual. Yeah, for sure.
whatever kind of sex you're having,
Yeah.
gay or straight.
Yeah. Absolutely right. No, thank you. I think that's a really good answer to that.
Yeah.
It's a really good answer. So just tailing off of that, I think parents should be having like parental controls like they should be setting up the, I don't know, barriers or guardrails or whatever.
Net nannies.
Yeah, nannies.
But children are probably far more adept at getting round things that
Yeah.
parents can set up.
Exactly.
I think it might be useful if people could ask the children if they're seeing anything that is worrying them.
I guess that could work, but then, so because I'm thinking in my own mind, and I'm just like, in a way, I wouldn't ask my daughter if she had seen anything. It's almost like I don't want to bring it to her.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Yeah.
just almost like wait for it to come.
She says,
I don't
yeah.
want to, give her any ideas for her to now go and look and
look,
seek
or create
it.
curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, it's almost like I'd rather wait.
But if you are waiting in an accepting, an open posture towards emotional posture towards her, you can ask me anything. You can tell me anything.
Being open.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
very
you are.
open
Yeah.
with my daughter,
Yeah.
even at this young age, and I feel like
Yeah.
my mum was very open with us.
Yeah.
Even till now, we can talk to my parents about anything. It's just obviously I wouldn't talk to my dad about certain things
That's fine.
as a woman, but
Yeah.
they had that open lane of communication, so my parents know everything that goes on with my life.
Yeah.
Really and
Which
truly.
is a good, healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Because if anything ever happens or wrong, you can just say mum, dad, which
Yeah.
is the best relationship to kind of have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those are your parents.
Yeah.
Some good attachments. So no. Great. Thank you.
So the next question is from the audience. I wonder if you see a gender bias when it comes to porn addiction in young kids.
What would that mean, gender bias? A preponderance of it in one sex
Yeah.
rather than another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would see it. I know that girls and women look at porn, but I don't think with the same intensity that men do. I think it is that there are probably more boys watching it than girls.
Yeah. I think you did touch on this in your chapter, the around men being more visual and women, it's more mental.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
emotional, yeah.
And that's not all women and that's not all men. But
No. Yeah.
Not
is
generalising,
they
but
are
the
continuums,
majority.
yeah.
The next question is, someone did ask, how would I get help if I had a problem with intimacy because of porn?
See a therapist.
See if
Or,
yeah.
or try to persuade the partner to enter a couples therapy. Where when there is someone else in the room to watch the dynamic of the couple themselves, then they can say, I see that you don't say anything, or I see that you tend to make a face when she says something, or whatever. It helps to have another insight or someone who knows how relationships might work. But the lack of intimacy is not being able to say something.
That's true.
And if you have someone observing that, you might see where it's coming from. And of course, it all goes back to how we saw our parents do relationships.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we tend to be attracted to the same kind of people that our parents were.
Mm.
And that's not gender specific. Sometimes it can cross gender lines. That
Yeah. Okay.
a father is the loving one or the mother is the cold one, against gender stereotypes.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, John, the final question of today. And thank you. You've been so gracious answering all of these questions, honestly. So the final question we have for you is, where do you see the rates of sex or porn addiction going given the advancements in technology? And what measures should be put in place to try and combat these addictions and these rates?
I have no idea, but I think wherever it's going, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
When you think of the ability that AI is going to bring,
Yes.
where you can make... I've seen pictures of Donald Trump in an evening dress dancing with Elon Musk. They're so convincing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If but that's my thing. I think it's mind-boggling, but I think the things that you spoke about right at the top of the interview, about people bringing laws in saying that people have to identify themselves before they can download any kind of material, is going to create quite a debate about it. It's going to bring it out into the open, and it's something that people are not usually talking about. So whatever happens, it's going to be a good thing, because it's going to address what your question is addressing. Where is all this going?
Exactly. No, I totally agree. In your chapter, you mentioned that there were 4 million sites that have gone out.
Oh, there's probably far more now.
Probably
This
way
was a
more
decade
probably
ago.
now.
So those sites do need some barriers. They just do to protect our children, I guess, right? So yeah.
There was something that I did read in regards to the What's in the News story that I presented. And one of the rebuttals, let me say, was that they said that when it comes to sex education, a lot of some of these explicit sites do help some of the teachers and the educators in trying to relay the right messages. So there are some good sexual content out there that is actually helping. So in creating this law, will that not deter the children from learning adequately as opposed to just kind of using it for pleasure or something? So I think that's another area that I think definitely needs to be explored, just because you don't want to take away the help that can be given in a way. Because I remember being in school and then they showed us, these sex education videos, VHS, showing my age, showing my age. But then, they'll show us and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But even things like that, it may be hard to access because of these laws that may come in.
Yeah.
So I think that's
a good point. That's a good point.
That's worrying.
I think sex education might need a bit of a revamp.
Yeah.
In general, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that might be one area where they could show things that were AI generated that may not be containing violence or...
That's a very good
that's a
idea,
good
actually.
idea.
Maybe the AI can be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh.
No, amazing. Thank you so much, John. I think
All
that's
the
it,
questions
right?
we have for you today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
But thank you so much.
so happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Beveridge. Thank you. You've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
No, thank you.
So, John, we have a question that we aim to ask all our experts that come through and talk to us in the health room. And the question is, what does good health mean to you?
Good health means a sense of well-being that is a result of self-care, of looking after oneself. That means good food, exercise, doing the things that we enjoy, being with friends, having good relationships.
Yes, amen.
And working to maintain them, because they do require work and maintenance. I think that's it.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's
Amazing.
it.
I'm going to quote that. It will be a post, so please, could we have your permission to use that?
Sure.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you so
I
much.
love that.
Yeah,
Especially
that's definitely going to be a quote.
I love a good time. I live for a good time.
Thank you so much, John.
Thanks.
Hi, guys. So this is actually a 2-part series. We have the first lovely guest, Mr. John Beveridge, and our second guest that you guys will be seeing shortly is Dr. Paula Hall. So, yes, stay tuned.
Y'all come back now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.